Tuned in to this week's episode of Tribal Research Specialists, the podcast, a podcast about tribal people, our communities, and discussions on research traditions. We aim to uncover the true meaning of research methodological approaches that are currently operating in tribal life, with implications for tribal communities and avenues for knowledge production. Yes, sir. That was your good old round dance and or owl dance song, and this particular track comes from a mystery reel. This one is was recorded and or gifted, we don't know, to Alan Merriam. So I imagine it was recorded on or sometime before the 1950s. And the individuals singing there are from here on a Flathead Indian Reservation. I don't know who they are. I don't know. But well,
they're singing a good tune.
That's a good tune, you know. And yeah, hey, yeah, pretty good one. But you know,
you don't get that on Joe Rogan.
Who's that? Who's Joe Rogan?
You don't get that. You don't get that on the JRE.
Who is that? I don't even know who that is. Never heard of him. Does he work down at the truck stop? Is he the cashier?
He's not on the TRS. That's
no.
The JRE's not on the TRS.
No, definitely not. No, we don't know.
You could tell that's an owl dance song.
Yeah. Why?
Well, I mean,
give us your
it's
evidence.
Cadence, it's song.
Well, of course, the beat.
For one, the beat.
The beat puts it in the round dance or the owl dance genre. But you know, around here too, there's the gift dance, which is essentially the round dance. But now the owl dance is a little different because it's.
So would on the Flathead Res, did they used to have those like house dances where they would clean out the kind of someone's living room and they'd sing owl dance songs and.
Not owl dance songs specifically, but the war dance, yeah. But not the owl dance, as far as I know. Do tell.
I just, for those who can't see us, I just gave him the "oh really" face.
Quite exaggerated as well.
Rambunctious. I'm rather rambunctious this evening.
Oh yeah, what you got going on? Just down some ice cream?
I just downed some ice cream. I had a hankering for some French vanilla because I'm a classy gal. And
was that the Western family or is it?
No, there was no Western family French vanilla. As you know,
yeah,
Western family
vanilla.
only makes vanilla.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a classy fella.
Okay.
I'm a fancy boy.
So tell me about this ice cream then. some more?
Oh, it's good, man.
Oh, it's good. Okay.
It hit the spot. But the hankering for an ice cream is a result of my rambunctiousness tonight. This evening, yeah.
Well, we hope to channel that in a positive way for
also
positive results.
We got a guest today.
Well,
we're gonna have a guest.
We got the guest, and this particular guest, I think, shares in a great deal of rambunctiousness, even without the ice cream. I would say, I don't know. I mean, I can't. I mean, I can speak with some experience of the rambunctiousness of our next guest. However, where the norm of rambunctiousness falls among this guest and their familial group, that is in question. That is something I wonder.
Well, what you might call rambunctiousnness, my family might call Monday evening. or other
bedtime.
Families, it might our bedtime. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just a different realm.
Yeah, rambunctiousness on a scale of a normative scale. I mean, matching and folding socks. That's not very rambunctious. However, with our next guest, that could be a pretty rambunctious event. Would you say? I don't know. I don't know. Well, let's hear from her.
Let's welcome to the TRS.
The terse.
The terse.
The terse.
The tesseract.
The tesseract.
Oh Lord.
So
Good
this
evening,
is
boys.
this is my sister Luella.
Yes.
My sister Luella here, and who's going to bring the voice of journalism to our
the power of the press.
Our quasi academic program, but mainly it's just people that don't party anymore.
We're curious, like kittens.
Kind of chose the sober path after
The red road of
decade
sobriety.
of debauchery.
Well, you know what's funny? I must bring this up because
Okay.
I used to like to party.
Okay.
I used to like to run around and be bad. Yeah. But I never had an addiction.
Oh.
Ever. I was never an alcoholic or even an abuser. I just like to have fun. And then when I was done, right? And
you're saying you could draw the line.
Yeah, I could draw the line.
Well, that's debatable, but okay, let's go.
I haven't drank.
She's acting better than us.
Yeah, she's acting better. Okay, go ahead.
Once I turned like 31, I stopped drinking.
Yes.
And I used to work an outreach program in Ashland at St. Labre.
Was that before or after the drinking?
Way after, like a few years ago.
Okay.
And my clients were essentially like, the drunks and that drug addicts, and a lot of them lived on the street. And they would ask me, oh, let's go have some beers on this weekend. I'm like, oh no, I don't drink. Oh, how long have you been sober? I'm like, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't work a program. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not in recovery. What do you mean?
You don't have no coins?
I just chose not to drink anymore. So how long have you been sober? No, that I'm not counting anything.
Just go with it, Lou. You better count.
Yeah, you should start.
Expect it.
I'm like, well, it's just they couldn't wrap their heads around it, and I'm like, okay, about 7 years. I had to just go with it because they just couldn't.
Well, aside from debauchery and from Luella's lies to us just now.
Yeah,
I'm not a liar.
We'll overlook that.
She Still buys, still reserves.
I've never tried to still reserve.
She's a journalist.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the journalism.
All right.
Yeah.
A respectable.
She's a journalist
who's been sober
Which
for
is-
12 years.
Respectable journalist.
Not 12 years by any means.
I thought you weren't counting.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
counting, but if it was 12 years, I'd be counting. I'd be counting down the days until I bought another beer.
Try 12 hours.
Yeah. So yes, I'm a journalist by trade.
Okay.
I like to tell people.
That's cool when people say that. I'm a journalist by trade, or you can put anything in there. I'm a waiter by trade.
Yeah, by trade.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm an entrepreneur
By trade.
In my heart of hearts, I'm a journalist.
Okay. Keep going. I messed up your.
And in reality, I'm poor. So I am
What?
the general manager. I'm poor.
Oh, you're poor. Okay.
Poor.
Emphasize the puh.
Oh, I guess
And
yeah.
poor.
So technically, your job title is you're the general manager.
I'm the general manager and editor of the Bighorn County News in Hardin, Montana, which is a weekly community newspaper that covers Bighorn County, which is a 5,000 square mile area in like southeastern Montana.
Yeah.
So we cover Bighorn County, which is mostly the Crow Indian Reservation and a small portion of the Northern Cheyenne Indian region.
Okay.
And she's the first Native American.
I'm the first Native American to run the Bighorn County News.
Oh wow.
And I'm the first Native woman to be in that position.
Yeah.
And I am the first to be in that position in decades and decades.
Did you say mom?
Yeah. They haven't had a mom in that position.
And she's the first Sagittarius.
No, I'm a Scorpio. And probably the first woman in quite a while, actually.
She's the first Libra.
Their first recovering alcoholic that doesn't claim I'm an alcoholic. No.
Alcoholic in denial.
The first alcoholic in denial to run a.
I'm the first chain smoker to be in that position.
No, I don't think she's the first alcoholic in denial to run a newspaper. I think that's pretty common.
The field is rampant with alcoholics. So I started there in February of 2019.
Okay. Yes.
And ended up under pretty upsetting circumstances becoming the general manager. My publisher, Jim, died suddenly 3 months after I was hired.
Huh.
Ooh,
So
that's not good.
about a month.
that burns.
Yeah.
About a month after he passed away, I was offered the position of publisher and told them I would take the job, but I don't want the title of publisher because 3 publishers had passed away.
Kind of a curse.
Oh, damn. So she's...
Luella, you're so funny. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm dead serious. I don't want that title.
The first superstitious
like,
editor of the Bighorn
Yeah.
County News. No.
Actually,
She
no.
also
Superstitions run deep in the newspaper industry.
They do? Okay.
Does it really?
Yeah, the superstitious crowd. So they changed the title and gave me the job.
Did it take a legislative act to change the title, or did they just change it?
They're just like scratch it out, publisher, and hand wrote general manager / editor.
That's cool, man. That is now, is this an industry? Now tell me this. Is this an industry that's, I mean, obviously it's sorely needed to have a native representation, but are there other examples of you in Native America?
Can you hear me?
A little bit. I mean, yeah, I can hear you now. Did you hear my question?
You're good? Yeah, I heard your question.
Okay.
So Minorities in journalism, it's kind of hit and miss, with minorities in journalism, but specifically Native Americans in journalism. When I first started, when I was first in college in the early 2000s, about 4% of the minorities in journalism were Native. So 4% of a small percentage, it was 4% of 15 or 16% of people in journalism.
Right.
And now it's less than 1. It's less than 1% of 15%. It's a ridiculously low number. And most natives in journalism are working at tribal newspapers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, so there's plenty of native run newspapers, Indian Country Today, and then each, I think most reservations have their own, local tribal paper. But in your situation, it's a little bit different because this is I wouldn't say mainstream because it doesn't feed the mainstream population in the region, but it does serve a large population locally, but a mix of native, non-native issues and clientele. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're owned by a non-native company. We're owned by Yellowstone Communications.
Okay.
And so that company is out of Livingston. They own 13 newspapers.
Uh-huh.
We're probably the one that's closest to a reservation. The next one would probably be the one out of Forsyth, because they're in Rosebud County. So they would be the next closest ones because they're right there by Lame Deer.
Right.
But we cover the most native news. We're the only newsroom out of that group that has Indians in the newsroom.
How many?
And
how many on your staff?
All but one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
All but one.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then. Okay, let me ask you this. Since you are in this unique situation where you're in a position where you're managing a non media outlet that's not owned by natives, but predominantly with almost a majority of the folks native. Are there elements in the news that you report, or the style that you write, or the way you present your material that's different than, say, a mainstream media outlet, even a local one serving a local clientele? So does your nativeness come out in the news or not?
For me, I don't necessarily think so because of my degree background. Like, my educational background is in journalism.
Right.
So I have the training that it takes to be an unbiased journalist.
So
I have reporters that didn't have that training.
Right.
And it comes out in their work. But
okay.
Because I edit their work, I can filter out a lot of opinion and slanted kind of when you write something and you kind of favor, you don't realize you do it, you favor things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can filter that out and say, okay, now that you talk to that side, go talk to the people on the other side of the issue.
Right.
Because it's not, as a newspaper, it's not our job to report only on one topic or one side of one topic.
Yeah.
It's our job to report about, what's going on in our community and how is it going to affect the people in our community. And so that means both sides of the issues.
Right.
And I think that when people think of the news and media, they tend to think a lot about TV news.
Right.
And when we see people like Tucker Carlson on the TV talking about his opinions,
right.
That's not news. That's not what we're trained to do when we're in school. Tucker Carlson didn't go to journalism school. He's just a doofus with a bow tie.
What did you call him?
You're talking a doofus with a bow tie.
Oh, they said Jesus. Jesus with a bow tie.
What? Hey, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, who are we to say? Okay.
It's not our job. Like, I have a lot of opinions.
Right.
But that's not my job.
Well, okay.
Yeah, like if you were to look at the news, if you were to look at the news, most of what you see on TV as the news, quote unquote, is commentary. It's not the news itself. Like, you know who Norm Macdonald is?
Yeah. The Saturday Night Live news.
He has a funny joke about the news and how it's only 30 minutes. There really is only 30 minutes of news. But anyway, we don't need to get into that. But it seems like we're flooded with commentary.
Yeah.
And not the news.
Well, okay. So I'm confused by something here, or I guess I need to clarify. So what you're saying then is the discipline of journalism. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter what kind of person is in that profession, right? Whether they're native, non-native, from another country. It should all just report unbiased information.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay, go ahead.
The interesting thing about this is everybody in the world sees the world differently, depending on how they grow up, the culture they're in, just, their frame of mind views the world differently.
Yes.
So a newsroom should have all kinds of different people in it because they all view the world differently. Okay. And so if I look at an issue one way and then my worker looks at an issue a slightly different way, we're both able to ask different questions that are going to result in pulling out better information. Okay. And that better information will be able to be presented to our readership, and somebody might be able to learn something that's, more beneficial or understand something better. Or, it's just more beneficial to the reader. Right. Unfortunately, journalism has been dominated by, white American men for decades and decades. Uh-huh. And it's a really hard industry for, especially women of color to get into. Right. Because, it's one of the glass ceilings it's difficult to break. I've struggled a lot in the industry. I've had several jobs in Montana journalism. I've been pretty successful in them, but there's a lot of stuff you have to go through to be successful in them, and it can break you down. I was out of journalism for a good 10 years before I came back.
Okay. I guess let's see. What am I trying to get at here? So what I'm trying to get at then, or from what I understand is, if you have a diverse newsroom, diverse reporters, you're going to capture more issues. That makes sense, right? That's kind of what you said. Yeah. So let me think about say a media outlet that's predominantly native. Is it inherently going to be biased for native issues, or is there still going to be the professionalism that can capture news that's going to be consumable by the masses, both native and non-native?
I'm probably like in the minority when it comes to this issue, because I think that like a native-owned newspaper should have a diverse newsroom. Okay. And a lot of native-owned newspapers have native-only journalists. Right. But a diverse newsroom could mean a Navajo, a Chippewa,
Right. Or a balance of male, female.
It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have.
Or your audio's bad.
Can you hear me?
A little bit. Sounds like you're underwater.
Barely.
I just think that.
Are you in a river? Are you safe?
So my question or my thought about journalism is that I've kind of always had an issue with like native run newspapers.
Okay.
Not that sounded bad, but like I have an issue. I have an issue with native run newspapers.
Yeah.
What I would say though is if you isolate native,
Yeah.
we can. So if we isolate native populations, so like say you have a native newspaper that's just a native newspaper for native issues,
yeah,
then it never seems to like reach anybody because.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh.
we're
He's talking. He's talking. Yeah, he's into a deep subject here, and he's using his hands to talk. So we gotta listen.
Podcasting.
Okay, go. Keep going.
We're god dang podcasting.
God dang it. Okay, get back to it. You had your hands together. Okay.
When I was young in high school, they would have all the newspapers in the library, and then I went to college. They have all the newspapers in the library, and then they have like the Indian paper, which is at the time was Indian Country Today. It was the big paper, and you'd go in there and you'd read it, but it was always only native people who read it, if they did at all.
Sure.
And what I always noticed was the paper itself didn't realize it was creating an isolated perspective, like it was native newspaper, native issues.
Yeah.
But it was the native thing. Like, I never understood why, like, native successes and native, and I guess some negative news, but it's just part of the paper. Like, it's the news, right?
Yeah.
Like, if something happens in your area, whether it's native or non-native, if it's of value, it should be in the paper. But for some reason, once a native story makes it into the mainstream paper or whatever it is, it's considered, well, that's an Indian story, and people just kind of like
cast it aside.
They cast it aside.
Right.
So the danger of like what's going on with my sister and where she works is that the community, instead of saying, hey, here's a newspaper now that's representing all of the county, which is both tribal and non-tribal, the non-tribal members, our non-tribal people of the county can say, will start to say, and this might be controversy, but it's probably true to say, well, that now it's a native paper.
Right.
And they just push it aside.
Yeah.
When really the fact what they're seeing is that their county is a native county and the paper's just reflecting its audience.
Right.
So how does someone deal with that? Because like outside of like some crime or tribal politics, you really don't see people in the news at all, really. Like a human interest piece once in a while, you kind of see this like overcome the odds thing.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
How do you do it? How does someone?
Yeah, that's why I think this is kind of a unique situation here with Luella and her work. I mean, and she kind of said it. You got to be a professional, and you have to report all of the news. So then I'm sitting here thinking, well, okay, then how do native newspapers then capture news that's, I guess, beyond the scope of their audience? Does it even matter at that point? I mean, I guess it just depends on where the newspaper is at. But say, for example, Indian Country Today, that's a national newspaper for the most part. And so it should be able to capture the issues that matter across that population, right? Is that what you're saying?
I would think so, but the problem there is that now you're condensing Indian Country into like 7 pages of news.
Yeah.
I would think then that becomes too glossed over.
I don't know. it's back to the same old the same, not the same old argument, but the argument about anything that you're trying to the catchword today is indigenize. We're going to indigenize and then fill in the blank. We're going to indigenize sneakers. We're going to indigenize
but
textbooks. We're going to indigenize. So if you try to indigenize journalism, what does that really mean? Does that mean we're only going to focus on native and native issues? But then you got the fact that you have this vast diversity in the native population. Then can you really do that? And like you said, condense it into 7 pages.
And then what's of interest to your readers? Are we going to assume that all native peoples just like to hear native headlines?
Right.
Or
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird deal because
this is where I'm getting. Well, I'll get back to my very first question when I was asked Luella about, are there elements in native media that are different than mainstream? Because we can pick up any newspaper in the country for the most part and get regional and national news. But what would be, I mean, what's so unique about native journalism? Can we pick up any newspaper and also get regional and local native news? But shouldn't there be something different about it that reflects maybe the unique style of thinking or of doing in native communities? I don't know. That's just what I'm guessing. Is there an element in native media that is unique and different?
Well, the first thing I thought of was obituaries.
Yeah.
I honestly think the way we write our obituaries is so different. And was it you, Aaron, that I was talking to when I said, I didn't even know she was Crow. But then I read her obituary and she used our slogan.
Oh.
And they're like, must not have been Aaron, because then they said, what do you mean? What's our slogan? Our family is large. If we did not mention your name, please forgive us. Our family is large.
If we have forgotten your name, please accept our apologies. Our family is large. Like there is, because I've read obituaries all over Indian country, and I will say it's funny you bring this up, but I think I'd gamble that a large portion of native people buy newspapers because of obituaries.
Yeah.
Really?
Since funeral homes now have websites, a lot of people have stopped purchasing obituaries for the newspaper. And like for me, that's like, but what are genealogists going to do when the internet stops working? What are genealogists going to do? Because when the internet stops working, they're going to have to go back to these hard copies. And if the obituaries aren't in there, how are people going to know who their parents were? How are people going to know what their birthdays were? How are people going to know where these people were buried? So I make a concerted effort every few weeks to catch up on all the people who didn't get obituaries run in the paper, and I'll run the brief version.
Right.
So-and-so passed away on whatever date in whatever town.
Yeah.
He was born on this date to these people in this town. Funeral services were held on this day.
Right.
At this place. He was buried at this location, and this funeral home was in charge of the arrangements.
Right.
Like, when I worked at Bighorn County News right after high school, in 19 whatever, that was part of my job. And funeral homes would send those briefs.
Yeah.
But they don't even do that anymore because they think that the internet is going to always be here. So, like, I do that now too. So as part of my job.
so if the internet went down, do you think we'd worry about that kind of stuff?
I think eventually we'll go back to basics, and people will want to know where they come from. I think people are always going to have a need to know where they came from. What if Bullis Mortuary suddenly forgets to pay their host server payment or what if the server company goes bankrupt and loses all of their information?
Right.
Like, things happen.
Right.
I've written for websites that have lost everything.
Yeah. So not just the whole internet going down, but those kind of situations, then that record is lost. Yeah. So that's really interesting. It's interesting that you guys both mentioned that you think obituaries are unique from other news sources for natives. And is it largely the way they're written, or the information that's put in there? What is the difference?
I think that it's how we list people,
right?
And I think that it's why certain people are listed. The order that they're listed is very important.
Yeah.
I've sat in on people writing obituaries where the conversations have spiraled into yelling matches because someone was named before somebody else. Or I've seen, when I worked at the Gazette, I've seen one wife who was like the ex-wife, the first wife, send in an obituary for her ex-husband. And then I've seen the second ex-wife send in a separate obituary for her husband.
Oh no.
And the woman that he was married to at the time of his death did not send an obituary at all.
Yeah.
So I mean, who's to say what that was about?
Yeah.
Do you think Indian people are the only ones that have like anxiety about obituaries and like how good obituaries have to be? No, I don't think so.
Equal anxiety.
Well, what do you think? What's another issue? What's another issue? Because you said,
go ahead. What?
That's small. I know that's small.
Obituaries, yeah. I mean, but yeah, that's small, but mighty, because that's an important one because it connects this idea.
People cut them out and they save them.
Yeah,
I've seen women have like Bibles filled with obituaries that have been cut out of the paper that they save.
Yeah.
Just to save.
It's this idea.
When my designer sends me proofs of the page, if certain obituaries, like, because I know some of the families that have them, if certain obituaries are not cut outable, like if they're gonna look too
like if they're split between different pages.
Yeah. Or if like the columns are all nice and pretty and then one somehow goes way too long down, I'm like, no, you gotta fix that.
Somebody's gonna cut that out,
because
it's gonna be hard to do.
Yeah, someone's gonna cut that out and save it for 25, 30 years, and their oldest granddaughter is gonna inherit her Bible and pull those all out, and it's gonna last forever, and that one piece is gonna be torn off that's how invested I am in this job. It's sickening. I'm gonna get an ulcer.
So this is the deal. This is what I want to know. That's one piece. Like if I say Native American news, Native American media, Native American journalism, I mean, I want to feel like it's different. I want to feel like it's something that's unique, that reflects the different cultural pursuits or life ways of the people. But you kind of dashed You dashed my stereotype right off, and you whipped out the journalism pro card and said, "Oh no, nay, we will report all the news equally and balanced."
No, not everyone does.
But not everyone does. But this is the thing. This is the thing. And Aaron and I chatted about it briefly while you were muted there for a second.
Zone?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, what is the contribution, the unique contribution of native news, native media, native journalism to mainstream media that would set us apart or native people apart? Is that a reality, or is that just something I'm just wishing and hoping for?
The contribution of native media to mainstream media?
Yeah.
I think that native media, native journalism, native reporters have been able to give the mainstream like an eye into the world that we live in. Because they don't know anything. I don't want to sound so jaded.
Well, no, I think it's the reality, though. I think that's just the reality.
They don't know,
Well, and I think our biggest audience, the truth is our biggest audience is those people who don't know anything and they want to know stuff,
Yeah.
Basics. What we would consider basics.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't want to know.
Okay.
I have come across, as a journalist, it's always been my nature to be too nosy. I want to know too much. I've always wanted to know too much. I've always wanted to ask questions. I've always wanted to spy on everyone around me. When I was a little kid and the adults were talking, we weren't allowed in the room. Like, we were not allowed to listen to the grown-ups talk. Yeah. I would army crawl down the hallway
to the edge of where the hallway met the living room.
Yeah.
I would army crawl. And I would listen until they heard me breathing too hard. So after a while, I would stop breathing as long as I could just to listen to them. And that was always my nature, was too curious, too nosy, wanted to know too much.
Yeah.
But a lot of these non-native journalists, they get to kind of a point where they think they know everything.
Right.
Not just stereotype everyone, but they do. I've seen it with my own eyes in all of the newsrooms I've worked in were non-native. Yeah. They think they know everything. The older they get, the more they get like
they
that.
Don't.
And so
they don't. Okay.
So it's hard to have a reporter come in and onto the reservation and be curious and want to know what's going on and want to know the root of the issue.
Yeah.
But that's changing. I'm seeing that that's changing. Like, there's a new level of professionalism and curiosity and just, it's just like a new skill level that's coming out of the journalism school that I went to in Missoula, with all the new students that I've worked with, because I always welcomed them into my newsroom. And when I worked at Little Bighorn College, I've always welcomed them into the college and kind of briefed them on who to talk to and, ask them everything about the story that they were working on for the Native News Project. Yeah. And always want to be involved somehow. So I always sneak them in. But just the skill level that these kids are working on, they're light years ahead of where I was when I graduated. And so, that gives me a little bit of hope. Right. Because some of the dinosaurs that we have in this industry, it's time for them to retire. It's time for them to go.
Okay. So go ahead. Oh, okay.
I just think that, but no, native journalism has it opened the door for a lot of the dinosaurs and their babies to be able to see, like, hey, there's other things out there,
like other work,
other worlds that you guys should
like other
cover.
work.
Yeah,
get out of journalism. There's a lot of things out there. It's a lot of work.
Go be in construction.
No.
No, but there's Mark Trehant is just like one of the most phenomenal journalists ever. He's the one who rescued Indian Country Today. He put him online. He's created, they have like a news program, like online, like a broadcast news.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they do broadcast news now online, and they have correspondents across the country. They're truly a national news outlet now. They work with the Associated Press. They have a bureau in DC. They have a bureau in Arizona. They have a bureau in Alaska.
Wow.
What Indian Country Today is doing is just like everything I ever wanted to do in Native journalism. Yeah. They have a reporter in, I think it's South Dakota.
That's good to know.
Covers up in this area.
Yeah.
They Patty Talahangva, who used to work for the Navajo Times, she works for them now, and she does the broadcast newscast, and she's just the freaking coolest lady ever. She's got that radio voice that this is Patty Talahangva, and I'm just like, oh my god, I love you. Brian Bull, he works for a radio station in Oregon. He's just like constantly getting awards, and he's mainstream, he's public radio. Yeah. And he's opened the eyes of all these listeners who, would never even think that he's a Native reporter, because he doesn't just report on Native things. Okay. But just the fact that he's a Native. Yeah. People are like, oh, hey. So when he does report on something Native, it creates this effect that people branch off of that one story he does, and it just spreads from there. So it's like just the fact that someone's a Native and like legitimate, and they have that Indian street cred because they're real and they're professional and they're damn good at their job.
So you're saying they stayed in HUD before? They had a HUD house before? Native cred? No, they're not that kind.
Not that kind. Not like
they've eaten commodities.
Easter egg houses.
Well, yeah, all of those people have, but they're. When someone is gas, real, right? When someone's real. When somebody is legitimate.
Okay, all right.
Those people who put fishing lures in their hair and think that they're Indian. You know what I mean?
Fishing lures?
Remember those feather fishing lures for fly fishing? Clearly, you guys have not spent any time on the Bighorn River flying for blue ribbon trout.
Clearly, you don't know Native fashion.
Clearly. Decolonize fly fishing.
I just made my first ribbon shirt.
Oh my god!
I'm just teasing.
So anyway,
Aaron had a question.
Those kinds of people are my heroes, because not only are they talented, not only are they like just breaking down barriers,
busting them down.
They're like legitimately Native. They're not fake. They're not apologetic about who they are and where they came from.
Right. So that's a big issue in itself. Aaron, go. Question.
I was just gonna say, so would you say overall Native journalism is taking the right steps forward, or does it still have some work to be done?
Oh no, Native journalism is exploding. It's doing great. Native News Online. There's a website called Native News Online.
Yeah.
Nativenews.net, I believe, is the website. Indians.com.
Yeah.
Indians.
With a Z.
With a Z. They used to be owned.
Indians.
They were owned by some podunk little dude at one point, like back in the day when I was in college. And their website was like awful. It was like
Bilderbergs.
Dark. It was like dark
Bilderbergs?
blue
What?
with like, it was dark blue with like yellow letters. And it always had like weird little stories that you would never ever hear if you didn't see it on their website. But then the Ho Chunk tribe, I think,
It's like a
bought
bad
that
MySpace site.
Yeah. It was GeoCities level.
GeoCities.
There was no bad MySpace sites.
Oh, yes, there were. The ones that would take like 15 minutes to load because there was so much crap on them.
Yeah. There was always
Me
a
and Misty
rose,
had
a rose
joint
in the
one.
background. You guys had a joint MySpace?
No.
That's sad. Don't admit that. What you did?
No.
We had a,
No.
I never
we had a
did.
joint. We had a no. Me and Misty.
Who?
Me and Misty
Oh.
did not. Me and Lou.
Brothers and sisters.
Was there
No,
a rose in the background?
Yeah.
Was there a rose in the
We're
background?
brothers.
So then I think it was the Ho
No,
Chunk
I
tribe
think it was,
actually bought that website. And my friend brought shut up, I'm telling you a good story.
Okay. I can't get over the rose in the background of the MySpace
You're the
page.
only one
Okay.
who had a rose on your MySpace page. And it said, every rose has its thorn. I'm the thorn. You thought you were so tough, and you weren't even tough. And then the song that started playing 10 minutes in while it was still loading was, every rose has its thorn. I remember. I was
What
there.
happened? What
I was
happened just
there.
now?
I'm like you have like guilty pleasures in me sometimes, and
Guilty pleasures. What?
so often just me. Yeah.
What? Say it again. You cut out. Guilty pleasures.
I didn't cut her. Yeah, and I said every once in a while, a pop song gets me.
Oh, okay. Like a little bit of
pop
White
song.
Snake,
Yeah.
or more soft than that. Well, it's White Snake's pretty soft for that era.
Well, I was 5 when White Snake was out.
Okay, never mind.
Oh.
Okay.
I wasn't very old when White Snake was out. I was pretty young.
So what's the pop? What's the pop that you're talking about? What's your era of pop?
Nothing. I'm just let's.
I want to
Aaron
know.
was like,
Like late 90s.
What was he
Aaron
into?
was totally into Michael Jackson.
Oh yes.
And then he
I
had
was
like
pretty young. I was pretty young.
4-year Beatles phase, and we were all so sick of the Beatles.
Well, the truth is when I was into the Beatles,
Yeah.
it was actually even just the specific
Era of the Beatles.
My mom had those blue, and it said like 1959 to 63 or something.
Oh, okay.
Like it was that. It was
It was
specifically
before the
that.
psychedelic
Just
Beatles era.
'cause I was too young to even understand the psychedelics, So
Before Yellow Submarine and those.
Oh no,
Or-
it was
No?
like
Abbey
the
Road years.
beginning of that, like
Okay.
I was like,
I'm not
Hard
familiar
Day's
with the
Night,
Beatles.
8 days.
Oh,
a week.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
You're familiar with the Beatles?
No, I'm not.
They're really fairly new.
Okay.
You should check
The
them
Beatles
out.
are fairly new, really.
Yeah, you should check them out. They just had a couple
A couple
albums
hits.
dropped on the iTunes.
That's sarcasm, right? Is that
It's just a
I think
sarcasm?
they're
small-
from Great
They're
Britain.
a small,
Small indie
they're a
group from
small
Great
indie
Britain.
band from Great.
I'm not that
Great Britain.
unfamiliar with the Beatles. Come on. That's like the evil journalism laugh.
Your mom. Well, our parents.
Give me
were
pictures of
listening
Spider-Man.
to- Your was your mom into Redbone?
Me?
God.
My mom?
Yeah. Was
Yeah,
your mom
I think so, yeah.
Into Redbone.
I think so. Yeah, I think she had a couple of the records, Redbone records, laying around. Yeah.
The
Why?
vinyls.
The vinyls, yeah. Well, okay, let's get back to topic
No,
here.
Okay.
Yeah, enough about this crazy band called the Beatles. I'll Google it. I'll figure it out what the Beatles are all about. I'm
Search on
kidding. Ask Jeeves. Oh God. I'll
Go
ask
to
Jeeves.
Dogpile and search them.
Ask Chief.
Because on Dogpile, they search all the search engines.
Yeah, crawls all of the web. I can't remember where we're at. Where were
Bing
we
it.
at? Bing it. Oh my God.
Aaron asked if Indian journalism was in a good place or.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So I had a question,
Is
a
it in a
follow up.
good-
She said it was booming. It's
Yeah.
a booming industry.
And I was trying to tell a story, but.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. We cut you off. Continue. Let's rewind
No.
the tape.
No,
She's
I'm
done. It's
I'm
over.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's your story. You tell it the way you want it.
So let's see. What was
It's
okay,
your
so
truth.
it's my truth. I'm living it.
Go.
So, what was I gonna say? Oh, that website, Indians.com.
With the
When
Z.
it first, with a Z, one of my teachers, he would say, check out IndianZ.com. Okay. Oh my God. And we would check it out, and it would always be like these weird, obscure stories.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool. And then it kind of stopped. Nothing was ever happening on it. And then I think it was the Ho Chunk tribe bought it. And they just started poaching badass journalists from all over the country.
Really?
And now that website's pretty damn good.
IndianZ.com.
Yeah, Indians.com.
Indian Z.
IndianZ.com.
Put it in IndianZ.TV.
I'm gonna put it in the notes. Yeah.
Indians.com.
Well, I want to know.
They were covering the Black Lives Matter movement. They had reporters live in Minnesota. They sent reporters to Minnesota to live stream coverage. Like,
wow,
that's how intense that website is getting.
That's pretty progressive.
So
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then they're national. Native News Online is national. In the Country Today is huge.
Right.
And then we have all these tribal papers that are doing like amazing things.
Yeah.
The Muskogee tribe has an amazing website. The Osage Nation. My friend Shannon is running the Osage paper, and my friend Benny works there. And I keep telling her to fire someone so I can work with them, because they ran a monthly paper, and I just want to work there.
Trump up some charges and get somebody fired.
Right. The Charcusta is one of the better tribal papers. My friend Leilani Upham used to work there. I always wanted to work at the Charcusta. It just seemed like a lot of fun.
Interesting.
It's probably not fun now. I don't know. I haven't heard any stories.
Well, you know, one of the debates about that paper and others that was sponsored by the tribal government is that largely they were censored from reporting anything negative about tribal government.
See, that's the biggest dilemma in tribal news.
Yeah.
Now, some tribal newspapers have an arm's length agreement with the tribe. So like Shannon at the Osage News, they get a small portion of their budget from the tribal government, but the rest of it they get from advertising revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So they're free to report whatever they want, and the tribal government can't do anything.
So how do you stay clear of the conflict of interest?
The tribe is not allowed to have any prior. It's called prior restraint. They can't request any of the news stories or any of the page proofs before publication. And they can't hold their budget hostage.
That must be some pre-agreement of some sort.
It's a
what did you call it?
It was a resolution in the tribal government that is now law.
I see.
That seems pretty important. The Muskogee Nation had that in place. I believe it was it was the Muskogee. They had that in place, and then they got a new chairman who repealed that law.
Oh, really?
And the Native American Journalists Association was all up in arms over it, and they lobbied for the paper, and wrote all these like whatever they're called, opinion pieces and op-eds and whatnot, and put a lot of pressure on that tribal government. On all these other Native American journalists, member newspapers did the same thing. And eventually that tribal government reinstated that law. And so the Muskogee newspaper is allowed to get their it's only a small portion of their budget. The rest of it is ad revenue. But they get their budget from the tribe. And the tribal government can't censor them anymore. Now, when I consulted one summer with the tribal paper when the Crow had a tribal paper, and it was all censored beforehand. We couldn't write anything, we couldn't publish anything that wasn't reviewed before by the office of the vice chairman.
Wow.
So but that whole summer I was consulting on what they could do to go independent. And so I had a whole write-up on how to run the whole thing and print costs out of the press in Sheridan, and what kind of staff they would need and the whole deal. And they were all excited, and then by the end of it they decided not to do it.
Really?
Yeah, because
of various,
the tribe didn't want to they didn't want to lose the paper.
And
I'm like, well,
so ultimately it was the tribe's decision.
I'm like,
whether to let them go
everyone
independent or not.
Everyone in the newspaper office, that little department, like they were all skilled enough to do it on their own. They just needed the startup. But
interesting.
I want to do it. Eventually I will. I would love to have my own paper.
Well, this is
my dream.
This is a pretty interesting one, because I'm not sure, and maybe just offhand, how many tribal or native news outlets or news, whatever media outlets are not a subsidiary or owned or funded by a tribal government. Do you know?
Most of them are. Only a small handful aren't. In Montana, I think there's only one up in Fort Peck.
Really?
That isn't. Yeah. Louis Montclair. I went to a school with Louis. They had a tribal paper that was owned by the tribe, and then they went independent. And made the Fort Peck Journal. And then the woman that was running it, she had passed away. And then Louis was running the Fort Peck Journal by himself, and then that went under, and so then he started an online paper.
Oh, okay.
So he's doing that all by himself. But it's a pretty big undertaking to have your own newspaper.
I would imagine. So let me okay. That's interesting. This idea of censorship or even oversight from the tribal government is an interesting topic, and I'm sure it's limiting in a lot of ways on what you can and cannot report. Just to guess, but largely all of these adhere to some common rule or some common professional style of journalism.
So I would venture to guess probably about 30%.
Really?
Have that kind of arm's length agreement.
Oh, really?
And out of that 30%, maybe half of them have legislation in place.
Right.
Last I knew, like the last time I really looked into it, maybe 15% have actual legislation that protects tribal papers from the government censorship. And about 15% more have an arm's length like agreement. But the rest of them are just kind of under the thumb of a tribal government entity. But most of those papers generally don't care to report about big issues.
Right.
A lot of tribal papers stick to happy stories anyway.
Yeah, the fun run.
A lot
Easter
of tribal
fun
papers
run.
will stick to
Diabetes walks.
Yeah, Easter fun run, powwows coming up.
Senator Tester was in
because
town.
a lot of tribal papers
Big
are not.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of tribal papers are not run by like professional journalists, and a lot of people who are not professional journalists have the mentality of they only write bad stuff about us. If we have our own paper, we're only going to write good stuff.
You switched voices there. What happened?
But like a true, yeah, that's my impersonation of a sad sap Indian. But a true journalist knows.
Can you say that? Can you go back to that voice? Indian? Yeah. Talk to us in that voice for the next 2 minutes.
One time? Oh my gosh, okay.
Okay, here it is.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
So this one time on Facebook, this person was camped out at a park in Crow.
Yeah.
And they had their RV plugged into the power pole.
Yeah.
And they were getting electricity for free. And I was like, oh, interesting. So I was being super sarcastic on Facebook. And I said, hey, does everyone see that RV plugged into that power pole? You know, the tribe pays for that pole. So does this set a precedent that the tribe is giving out free electricity to tribal members? And if this person is not a tribal member, does this mean that the tribe is giving out free electricity to non-tribal members? Does that mean that the tribe is favoring non-tribal members over tribal members? What are your thoughts? Oh my God, it opened up a huge can of worms, and all these people were pissed and they were all commenting on it. And then this one girl posted on her page and she's like, I can't believe that some people don't even care that so-and-so is camped out at the park because she has nowhere else to go. I have to go check on her every day because she has nowhere, her and her husband have nowhere to live. And all this woman cares about is free electricity. Mind you, that woman who lives in the RV is married to a convicted felon who's out of compliance with the violent offender list. And no one wants them at their house because he's like unpredictable.
Does he steal stuff?
He's an unpredictable violent offender who will snap at any moment. So then I wrote on my Facebook page, I said, I guess maybe I'll just put a sarcasm disclaimer over all of my sarcastic posts. So I did it for about 4 or 5 weeks. I put sarcasm disclaimer over everything that was sarcastic. But then, so that same day when everyone was like all up in arms over my insensitivity to the homeless plight of American Indians, I get a phone call at my work.
Yeah. And
it was from an unavailable number.
Ooh, that's not good.
And the office manager transferred it to the back and he's all, hello. I was like, hi, this is Luella. Can I help you? Did you write on Facebook about that woman who's camping at the park? I was like, yeah, earlier today I did. Well, if you're so concerned about people who are camping at the park, maybe you should, I have some things to tell you about. And I was like, sorry, bro, not today. And I hung up the
phone. You know, that voice almost
like this?
That voice almost sounds like Papa Bear in the Three Bears. That's my turn. It's all broke up.
And it's just right. So
You just
with
used
that one girl.
Goldilocks voice.
Yeah.
With the Facebook girl.
But see, everyone knows where I work, so they can call me and tell me all their conspiracy theories. And oh my God.
Well,
anyways,
yeah, we talked about some interesting things here, and I think there's more to talk about, especially this thing about censorship. That's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
And the one I'm curious about, and I don't know if we have a lot of time to discuss it today, but maybe for next time, because I think this is a popular stereotype, right? And I was kind of trying to get at it, trying to get something out of you that maybe was there, but it doesn't sound like it's there. So there's this stereotype, that Indians are, and for the most part, it's kind of true in a way, but I think for everyone it is, they have their storytellers, right? So Indians can tell a particular kind of story in a particular kind of way that captures an audience of their community. I think that's true in for certain folks, but I'm wondering, and this is what I was kind of getting at, is that an element of native journalism, like to tell a story in a different way that strays outside the norm of professional journalism that you learn from Western education, that's rooted in a European model of journalism? I don't know. That's kind of what I was wondering as well.
I think so. And I think that I could probably talk for hours about that. One of the reasons I went into the field is because of the storytelling element.
Right.
One of the reasons I stay in it and keep coming back to it is because of the storytelling.
Yeah.
Not like, there's news and then there's feature writing.
Right.
That is an aspect of journalism.
Yeah.
And some of the best writers I know are journalists. Some of the best storytellers I know are native journalists. And there's a distinction there.
Yeah.
One of the things that I notice about native journalists is the ability to kind of transport someone with the words that they choose.
Right.
And I don't see that a lot with other journalists. I see good writing. I see good narrative. I see good form and functionality. But that ability to transport someone to the place that they're writing about.
Yeah.
That's a talent that comes with cultural identity, and I can see that with some other writers. I see that with like Mexican writers. My friend Serena has that talent. She's Mexican. She's from Southern California. I see it a lot, and I talk about this a lot too, is my friends who have grown up in poverty that are non-native, like my white friends who grew up poor.
Yeah.
They have that ability, that poverty. It's poverty culture, there is some sort of a culture in the poverty that we share.
Right.
And they can do it too. So it's pretty cool. I could talk about it for hours and hours, but there is an ability to have that narrative storytelling ability that native journalists have that non-natives don't seem to have in general. And I think that's what non-natives see with the people that I mentioned earlier, like Brian and Mark and Patty. They were able to see that. One of my arch nemesis in journalism, for more than a few reasons, won a Pulitzer for his ability to tell that story narratively. For a book that he wrote and for a long form investigative piece that he did. And he's a native. So it's pretty cool the way they can do that and the way they can capitalize on that as a talent.
You know what? Let's revisit this in a subsequent episode, because I think it's important. I think it's one that I want to talk about a little bit more. So maybe you can invite one of your these folks you talked about, you and another person, and I can give you guys some hard-hitting questions about that. What do you say?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah, because we've gone on long enough.
Give me a date, and I'll find someone.
Okay, we've rambled. We've engaged in some gossip. We probably told a few lies.
Hot
gossip. We probably offended somebody, but that's all right. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So let's get you back. Okay. Let's get you back. We'll talk, and we'll find a co-guest. And I think what we're going to try to do is maybe reel you in to be a part-time host for us. What do you think about that?
Oh, for sure.
Let's do it.
I definitely want to do that. Yeah.
Let's do it. So we're going to collaborate. You and I will collaborate on some guests that we can bring on, because you're going to open up a whole new door to a population of people that I wouldn't otherwise think of to have on our podcast. Oh, yeah. And I think that's important. So let's do that. Okay. And yeah, it's going to be cool. But I think we've run our course here.
Okay.
So we're out. That's it. We're done.
Good night.
We're done. All right. Thank you for joining us on this episode. And if you want to learn more about what we're up to, go ahead and search Tribal Research Specialists in Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, and check out our other sites. And if you want to contribute to the show, go ahead and look us up on Patreon. We would appreciate your donation.